BTB listeners, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Listen, if this episode inspires you, do me a favor, take 5 seconds to shoot me a like and subscribe to the podcast. There are several more exciting guests that are in the pipeline, and I just can't thank you enough for your continued support, and let's keep paying the mission forward. Let's get into it. Episode 13 of the BTB Project. Today's guest is the holder of one of the most impressive junior tennis resumes in history. As a player, he reached a career high of number 1 in doubles and number 5 in singles in the ITF World Junior Rankings. His greatest accomplishment came in 2006 when he won Junior Wimbledon with his partner Nate Schnugg. In 2007, he advanced to the French Open Junior Boys singles semifinals and was also a finalist in doubles. He captured the boys title at the USTA 18s Nationals in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and as a junior qualified and competed in the main draw at the US Open. He went on to compete at the University of Texas, where he was a Big 12 champion, doubles All-American, and named to the NCAA All-Tournament Team. Kellen Damico, welcome to the BTB Project.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby.
Welcome to the BTB Project, designed to empower listeners to identify their why and to live their best lives no matter the circumstances. My name is Coleman Gerhardt. A former athlete and motivational coach, I've had the opportunity to inspire thousands through my story and help accomplish what they are built to be. You'll be encouraged by each and every episode, and let's get into it.
Yeah, when I blow up, I'ma soar high like Peter Pan. In real life, be living out my dreams. If I'm waking up, it's in a foreign land.
It is a humbling and tremendous honor to welcome the great Kellen Damico to the BTB Project. Welcome.
Coleman, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And it's always wild to think of Parker, Colorado, where you and I spent many years of our life, but we've been able to stay connected over the years. And it was really neat over the last few days to go back down memory lane and hearing that you're going to go check out the Big 12 championships, TCU in Texas. And I would love just to start knowing your history with the University of Texas and recently relocating back to Austin. What did it mean to you to be back in that environment? And did they hype the crowd the way that you remember when you were playing at UT Austin?
Yeah. Thanks again for having me, man. It's been a while since we were out there banging balls, but I don't think that either of us are going to be lasting that long on the court anymore.
No, sir.
Yeah, so I guess it's a good thing people are talking about my experience in tennis and not getting me out on the court anymore. And yeah, honestly, it's been a hell of a ride. I relocated back to Austin from Denver a few weeks ago for work and was gifted this opportunity to just get down and watch number 2 in the country, TCU, at number 1 in the country, Texas, play for not only the number 1 spot in the country, but also that Big 12 regular season title. And it's just as fun as I remember. Honestly, a little bit more nerve-wracking being in the crowd than playing. You're in total control once you're out there, at least from what I remember. But when you're out in the stands, you're just watching 6 matches go head-to-head, and quality was super high. These are the best, college kids in the country from both teams. I think Texas had the number 1 guy in the country outright, and both teams were just stacked. So the quality of tennis was really good. TCU came out super hot with the doubles point. When you're down that doubles point, you obviously got to come out firing in singles. I think Texas ended up losing a couple, 3 or 4 first sets. Really proud of the guys for coming back. That TCU team beat us earlier in the national championship for indoors. And they're led by David Roddick, who is an absolute legend in the sport and was actually one of my USTA national coaches. So I know David really well, was able to catch up with him.
Wow.
Match. Yeah, TCU, credit to them. They fought hard. At a rival's stadium is never easy, but Bruce has done a hell of a job since taking over that position at Texas. the guys have rallied around him, and it was awesome to be a part of and to watch the Texas Longhorns take that Big 12 title back.
No, it's just crazy and surreal to hear those words come out of your mouth because from my perspective, and I'm a few years older than you, but man, I remember watching you hit the sticks with UT, and it makes me reflect back to your freshman year where you guys did something that I believe was one of the greatest feats for that university, getting to the national championship. And being somebody that grew up with you in a town and in a state that just does not produce tennis players. Just to be frank, and I know that you made a lot of decisions before going to UT to get your game ready for that level, but what did it mean to you to be able to really, at the end of the day, be not only immersed back in that environment, but did it make you miss college tennis at all?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. College tennis gives you something that tennis normally doesn't give you in that team environment. You're not out there. Yeah, you do have a component of doubles where you're playing with somebody else, but at the same time, the college game is much different. You're not necessarily playing for yourself. You're playing for the university. You're playing for the guys next to you. There's not only one of them. There's probably 10 to 12 of them, maybe 15 if you're lucky enough to have a bunch of spots available. But there's a long lineage as well. Like, our family coming from, like you mentioned, coming from Colorado, there's not a lot of really top talent when it comes to the sport of tennis. And I was lucky enough to follow in footsteps of guys like Jeff Zeller and Paul Kinke and you
Yeah.
and Saltenstein and Mark Weinig and gosh,
Bobby Rasmussen, Richard Johnson. Yeah.
so many guys. I think that we really came up in a really good era of Colorado tennis. And honestly, that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to stay and play. I did play that freshman year for Ponderosa. One of the reasons I actually did end up staying for that freshman year was just because I knew nobody had won state 4 years in a row, and I wanted to just try it. Ended up not doing it and bouncing out of Colorado that next semester. But
Who'd you play at state? Who'd you play at state your freshman year, Pondo?
oh man, I think I want to say I lost to Richard Johnson. It was either
Yeah, I thought it was Richard Johnson. And the only reason why I remember that is because, believe it or not, in a previous podcast, and we talked about this before we hopped on, when I talked to Coach Gould, the Stanford University coach, he was priding himself on being able to host the men's and women's NCAA national championships in 2006. And somehow, some way, my dad and I got down there and we got to watch. And I remember watching Richard Johnson serve out doubles point, of which then Pepperdine eventually won the national championship.
yeah.
And it's funny because going back, knowing the caliber of player that you were, and that Richard found a way to beat you on that particular day, I'm like, man, that was a shock. And then I saw what he did, and I'm like, you know what? To your point, a lot of these guys could play, right?
Make no joke about it. Richard Johnson was a stud growing up. He was playing ITF tournaments before I was. Obviously, he was like 4 years older than me. This guy could have gone and played anywhere. It wasn't, Pepperdine was really good. Obviously, they won that national championship. But like I said, that area of Colorado tennis was just stacked with talent. And it was a lot easier in that day to really find the guys that I needed to practice with in order to get better. So I was able to delay that moving down to a tennis academy, conversation because of that. Corrie Ross and Mark Weinig and those guys that were in Denver as well and still playing high school tennis. I think, can't remember where some of the guys played. I think Paul played a little bit, but Jeff definitely played at Cherry Creek. And,
Yep.
Jeff was a hell of a player himself. And he obviously had a good career collegiately as well. I think there's a misconception sometimes about the level of Colorado tennis, but when you look back at the people that have gone through, I think it's actually pretty good. The names that are on those lists is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I remember all too well my senior year. This was 2002, and I just remember 14 of the 16 guys that were in the state tournament all either had Division 1 or Division 2 scholarships.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I know you were a couple years behind that. I was bookend by right before I was hitting my high school legs. It was Chad Harris, Wee Kim, Chad Suda, who I had on the podcast recently. It's just some guys that could really play. And then to your point, Richard Johnson, Jeff Zeller. Names are all over the place, but I want to go back real quick to UT. And it's just amazing to me, not only what you did there as a player, but the history behind it with your grandpa being, I believe, in the Hall of Fame as a swimmer. So I know that you were heavily recruited, and I was just curious, and if it's ever been asked, was it always UT Austin, or did you have some other schools that you were heavily considering in the recruiting process?
Yeah, to be honest, my grandfather, Ed Gilbert, you're right. He is in the Hall of Fame at Texas for swimming, won the Olympics, or was a part of the relay team that did win the Olympics. So the lineage at Texas goes back quite a bit. I think haven't told the story a lot. There were 5 recruiting trips set up. I think it was Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State. My dad made me set up one at Army, even though I didn't go play there.
Right.
But
What was your dad's tie to Army, man? Because I know he was a Wyoming football player. What's the tie there?
well, he's just one of those guys that loves his country and
Yep.
wanted me to get that respect of at least going to check it out. I think it was important to him that I at least go see it and feel the history of what it's like to be there. I would have done it, but I went to Texas on that first trip and I signed my letter of intent the next day. I think got back to Denver. Obviously, it was going to happen regardless. I think I probably would have been wasting everybody else's time if I ended up taking those other trips. Texas has been in my blood since I was born. My grandfather probably put a burnt orange jacket over me when I was an infant.
Yeah.
And Michael Center did a great job of knowing the story of me going to Texas or wanting to go to Texas and not overcomplicating things. He did a really good job with the recruitment and just keeping my interest high in the school and understanding what team and what the vision was for the team. Yeah, I can't necessarily take all the credit for that success that year. We had an incredible freshman year, incredible class come in that year with me and Ed Corrie, who was
Yeah.
also an incredible tennis player and also my doubles partner for the majority of the time that I was there. So
2010 Big 12 champion with Eddie, and also 2008, you were all-tournament team. And he was from overseas, from what I recall. Can you maybe speak to how you guys hit it off? And we're going to get into your doubles background in general, but why Eddie? What made you guys click?
I had actually seen Ed a couple times at ITF events. He was from England. We obviously both played in junior Wimbledon together. You would always just see each other. You just like you would see a lot of the other ITF guys at these tournaments. But God, I remember always but then when we first got to Texas, we didn't really know each other too. It was always in passing that we saw each other at these ITF events. The relationship hadn't really been established yet, but what was established is I knew that his brother was also in Austin. So that's why he wanted to really come to Texas. He had family here. And I think, again, Coach Center did a great job getting him there because of selling the vision of what it was going to be like. Our team was really good that year. And then adding me and Ed to that rotation just set us on the path that we could all really see that national championship in our visions. It definitely wasn't like me and Ed called each other and said, let's go do this. This is going to happen.
Right.
I thought I was some country boy back then and he's some lad from England. And our personalities didn't necessarily hit off right off the bat. But over time, I think he grew into one of my best friends. I actually flew over to Portugal for his wedding last year with a couple of our other teammates.
It's awesome.
So we still keep in touch. But yeah, those friendships, those relationships that you build with those guys are ones that you take to the grave.
Yeah. And it's safe to say that I can relate in my college tennis experience, the relationships that I built there. I had guys in my wedding and then also too attending weddings. And I think that's really neat how forehands and backhands, so much more than that. And just to hear that story in itself is pretty awesome. And I know the listeners love hearing that as well. And I want to backtrack because I know that you got to see that Big 12 weekend. It's probably been a minute since you've been in that situation. But I want to know how it all started. I know that, as I mentioned, your dad was a football guy at Wyoming. Your mom had a pretty successful career as a D2 player growing up. So you inherited a lot of God-given talent too, especially with what you shared with your grandpa. But how did tennis start for Kellen Damico?
Yeah, definitely not a lack of talent from the D'Amico family. Obviously, my sister being a Texas #1 player as well. I think it was a matter of me just falling in love with the sport at a young age, mostly because I was playing everything, even at Sagewood in Parker, Colorado in middle school. I was playing baseball, basketball, was never really allowed to play football, even though my dad tried, I think.
If it makes you
But
feel any better, I played football for 1 year at Parker Vista Middle
okay.
School, right? And so my role was I was a long snapper. So it was my second game ever playing football, and I long snap, and my only assignment was to go down and try to tackle the person catching the punt. So I go down, and all of a sudden, somebody comes up and just side swipes me, and I get knocked out cold. Like, I'm talking concussion, knocked out cold. And everyone
This
loved me for my size, and like I was quick on the offensive line too, but I got that one concussion, and all of a sudden it pivoted to hitting fuzzy yellow tennis balls.
Yeah. Yeah, all it takes is one time to get hit like that, and you reevaluate some things.
Yeah.
I was always under the impression that I never wanted to get hit, so I think tennis was good in that area. I think one thing that really was important was that my parents never really said, "This is the sport you're doing. This is what you have to do." I think they used all these other sports as a way to cross train and really get better at whatever sport I eventually ended up wanting to stick with. And at the beginning, it was my mom was going out and playing tennis with Kathy Schnugg in Medford, Oregon,
No
and
way. Nate's mom?
Nate Schnugg's mom.
Oh my,
So
I had no idea. Are you kidding
yeah,
me?
yeah. First time Nate and I were just preschool little ducks, just waiting for both of our moms to get done hitting with each other while we're playing like Mario Kart or something. Finally, we just ended up getting out there and hitting next to him. So the first time I ever picked up a racket was with my best friend. I think that ended up making things a lot easier. Didn't hurt that we were, inherently pretty good after a while. Obviously, Nate and I went on and played, doubles together, and we're still best friends. And I think most importantly, tennis was a sport that I just had the most fun playing. I really liked the kind of competitive aspect to it where it's just mano a mano. You don't
Yeah.
have other guys to really depend on. Either I'm better or you're better, and we're going to find out in about 2 hours. So inherently, there was some success right off the bat, but I was
Yeah.
playing little Mo tournaments when I was 10 and had some success there, and ended up playing those 12s and 14s. And Krista would like to remind everybody on a constant basis that she has more balls than I do, but there's 3 bronze balls, doubles, and she's got a stack of them back
Uh-uh.
at the house. So it was cool. I mean, it was a family ordeal. It was fun. It was with my friends and just stuck with it. That was the sport that I wanted to play. And then after a while, you figure out you can't really play those other sports or else your coaches are going to kill you.
Yeah, no doubt. Any age is really cool to hear about the small world, what you and Nate have done. But I had no idea that your moms were hitting tennis balls back in the day. And it's amazing how tennis, the community, right? It's small. It is. There are so many interconnecting parts. And as I mentioned, with watching Richard play that national championship match, and then actually I ended up playing him a couple times in the Colorado State Open and taught with him up in Boulder when he was getting his master's degree in law up at CU, and just getting to know him. And well, Lord willing, I'll have him on the podcast too sometime because he has an interesting story to tell. But nonetheless, man, I think that's a incredible kind of setup to you get to this phase. And I know that you were a Parker, Colorado guy, but I believe you were born in California. Can you maybe share what got you to Colorado? And as we walk through that, I'd love to hear you shared Ponderosa as my former high school as well, but when you made the decision to train full time.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really remember too much about California. I think I was born in Torrance. I think I lived in Torrance for 2 years, 3 years maybe, and then moved up to Medford, Oregon, where my dad had his own construction company up there, and my mom was a lender up there as well. So I think that they just wanted something a little bit, quieter than LA. And my dad had family in Medford, Oregon as well. So it just seemed like close and a good fit at the time. That's really where I started playing tennis. That's where Krista started playing tennis. We had obviously funny, small world again. They had an incredible tennis scene in Medford, Oregon, a small town in Southern Oregon as well. You got Jonathan Stark and Jonathan Endicott and Scott Schnugg, and Harry Collins was our coach at the time. He had a few girls that played tennis and collegiately as well.
Mm.
And then I think it was around age 10 that we ended up coming out to Colorado. And really at that point, we moved out there because because of my father's work. And I didn't really know what was going to happen to tennis at that point because you don't really know what Colorado tennis is. Luckily, we were able to meet Gary Seymour, and Gary at the Pinery just took the reins and did an incredible job with my sister and I in regards to making sure that we got the practices that we need, the court time that we need, which is obviously extremely scarce, especially in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Gary gave us the keys to the courts, the indoor courts, and we would go at 4:30 in the morning before school. Obviously, sometimes I don't think he would make it out there, but my dad's waking us up and my mom's waking us up super early, and we'd go out there, bang balls for about an hour and a half before we get back to the house to shower and then go to school. So Gary did a great job there. And then once I think I decided that I really wanted to take that to the next level, I think it was about 13 or 14. I had just either got to the semis of clay court nationals or something around that level.
Now, were you playing 14s true at that point, or were you playing up in 16s and 18s?
I was playing, I think at that point I was playing 16s, 18s.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think what happened was, it's actually a funny story. My mom got a call from Andy Roddick, and, Andy's like, "Hey, this is Andy. Want to talk to you about your son and your daughter coming to our tennis academy." And I think my mom just hung up and was like, "Whatever."
Come on, Lisa. Come on
Yeah,
now.
Andy Roddick is calling us. Like, how would he even have our number? Still on those landlines back then. Yeah. I think my mom made a joke or something, and then he called back a few days later and was like, "Hey, just don't hang up. Just want to talk to you," and gave us an opportunity to come down. And then that was obviously a really hard decision for my parents to let their 13-year-old daughter and 14-year-old son leave town to go full time with this tennis thing is a big decision.
Why was Andy Roddick interested in you and your sister?
I think we had proven ourselves on the national ranking at a young age, but I think there were a lot of similarities in his game and my game that he saw that his brother could help me out with. Obviously, I looked up to Andy. Andy was my favorite tennis player at the time.
Makes two of us. Yep.
Yeah, he was the legend. So, like, I modeled my game after him. At some point, I was doing the whole cock thing on your on your serve and bringing the racket back high on the forehand and trying to rip the hell out of it. But when something like that happens, you either have to say, "Listen, if this is something that we're going to end up doing, taking a shot at, it's got to be now."
If I recall, Kellen, that Andy's brother's John, and was it an academy that they had in San Antonio? Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So Andy lived down the road in Austin, so it's about an hour away. He would always come down and practice with us. But yeah, the academy itself was in San Antonio, and there were 5 or 6 of us, top guys in the country, just living together, sleeping together every day. We're waking up together, going to school together, eating together. It wasn't necessarily something like a Bollettieri or one of those big tennis academies where you've got like this huge built out structure. It's kind of like the Wild West down there. And the guys that were down there really made it what it was. You had literally the best of the best in our age group. Me, Nate Schnugg, Ryan Sweeting, Drew Daniel, Mike Straczynski. All these guys played at Michigan, Florida, Texas, Georgia. Obviously, Nate's won national championships and more than that even. The level of talent that was down there, it wasn't just me, but what Andy and John were cultivating at that tennis academy down there was like, we are not going to be the one that has 150 different kids and your kid's not going to get attention. His pitch was, "Hey, I'm going to get the 6 of the best of these young guys and I'm going to do it on my own. It's going to be John coaching." So with obviously Andy coming down and helping us out when he can, obviously he was a little busy at the time as well. So
no doubt. And that's where, listen, a small world between you and I will come up right now. I spent some time at a tennis academy my sophomore year at Northern Colorado. I took the summer and went to Saddlebrook and got to train out there in Florida and got to spend some time with Marty Fish and learn his whole mantra, his underdog story. It was right around when he was finally deciding to cut weight and then had the run that he had as a pro. But this documentary that came out on Netflix, right, that showcased Marty and Andy. I'm curious, one, have you seen that documentary? And two, how did that timeline fall into the time that you spent with John and Andy?
I haven't necessarily seen the documentary, and I think the reason for that is just because it was intense. There was like that academy life was intense. And so it's not necessarily something I really wanted to go after and then really relive all the time again. But I do think that Marty went through those struggles. You can see, I heard about that documentary and I could tell you what was on that before I even saw it.
It's interesting to hear the foreshadowing, Kellen, between your dad having kind of that military-esque type of drive. And from what I understand, Andy Roddick's father was very similar. Did you meet Andy's dad? And did you maybe get a taste of some of the stuff that Andy was trying to overcome as well, trying to please his father?
Yeah, I met Andy's father and he was always super nice to me. And I think one thing that's important to get out of this is that Andy's father probably and wanted the best for him and John. Now, there's different ways to go about it, but in order to make it in the sport, especially in a sport like tennis, you've got to literally give everything. And whether it's whatever your end goal is, there's no shortcuts in tennis. Talent can only get you so far. And I knew after college myself, I didn't have what it took after college. I wanted to have a little bit more of a normal life after that. And in order to really reach the potential that Andy got to, there is some of that militant style dedication that you need to have that Andy's father knew about. You look at guys like Tony Nadal, there's a reason that Rafa is as nails as he is. You look at guys like Agassi, who was probably pushed over the edge a little bit too far by his father. Luckily, my father wasn't really like that at all. He was always understanding. He was always supportive. I would call him from crying from Italy after losing first or second round. And he was always asking how I was. And I didn't necessarily have that, but I think that you do get that from other people in your camp. And I think I don't necessarily vibe with that type of relationship too well. So I think that's where John Roddick and I had a falling out. But I do think that it does work for a lot of people. I think that you end up presenting people because of it too. And that just wasn't something that I was willing to continue doing.
That's well said. I definitely want to dive into some of more of the trenches that you experienced, but what I will say when it comes to my background in coaching, Kellen, is when I started coaching high school tennis, so graduated from UNC, come back and started coaching Chatfield's high school girls tennis at 22 years old. And I just simply wanted to be a coach that I never had. I simply
Mm.
wanted to be somebody that changed the direction of some of the coaching situations that I was in where I felt a certain level of discouragement and I just wanted to be an encouragement. And that whole philosophy and mindset in itself changed the trajectory of a lot of players. And again, I'm not talking about folks that are trying to play at the world stage, but just trying to play and trying to enjoy it. And I give you a lot of respect for acknowledging and recognizing moments of where coaches were feeding into you and moments where it was this personalities clash or not every coach is perfect for a player, right? That's what a lot of people hopefully can realize sooner rather than later. But before we dive more into those types of situations, listen, 2006, 2007, you put in this work and
Yeah.
this is what I remember, man. And then I want to hear what you have to say is this is back when there's still newspapers and you actually have to pick up and fold the page over to get to the sports section. And I see this article about this kid from Parker, Colorado, winning junior Wimbledon and just overall this run you made over these couple years. At the time, it's funny because here I was, graduated from Ponderosa in 2002. You and I got to hit a few times sparingly I felt like I was the sacrificial goat whenever I was asked to hit with you because I'm like, gosh, this kid is way younger than me and just way kicking my butt. And listen, man, I didn't start playing tennis till I was 14 years old. So I didn't have the miles on my tennis life as you did. And I want to get further into that in the conversation. But nonetheless, walk me through 2006, 2007, and what did that mean to you?
Yeah, it's something that still comes up every now and then. I'm 34 now, and I was 17 at the time. So that's literally half of my life ago. And it's still coming up. And it honestly, it's probably going to be the biggest accomplishment of my life until I have kids or get married or something, which isn't happening anytime soon. Yeah, honestly, Nate and I knew we were good. I think one of the reasons that we knew we were good was because we had this kind of instinctive way of communicating. Nate and I have been best friends since we were 4 years old. We knew something was going to happen. We didn't know where or when it was going to happen, but man, when it started at Wimbledon in 2006, it just took off.
What would be a way that you guys like, give me a one off of like, when you say you and Nate communicated in a different way, give me an example of like how your friendship was. What was it like, man?
Yeah, we were playing handball before we were playing tennis, waiting for the courts to open up, and we were doing sleepovers and then playing video games and things like that growing up. But there'd be, I knew no matter what, like, hey, there's going to be times when I'm serving that Nate is just going to take over the entire net. He's going to stand in the middle of the freaking court, and I'm just going to have to run my ass off across each side of the court trying to get back into the point if it gets past him. So there were times that you just improvise and figure it out. Obviously, the foundation and the basics are there, and you don't want to give up the alley. But I always knew that Nate had my back, and I knew that he had mine. And it was always like, no matter what, I'm still out there playing with my best friend. And then that kind of, there would be times, like I said, that Nate would go do something completely irrational, end up pulling it off, and then I was just playing a supporting role at that point. And then vice versa. Obviously, I think neither of us really wanted to be in the spotlight of the better doubles player or whatever. We wanted to make sure that if you saw Damico Schnugg on your side of the draw, you were like scared. And that was us. It wasn't either one of us. It was just us together. And that's, I think, what made us so great. But when like I said, we never really knew when it was going to take off. So at that Wimbledon that year in 2006, we actually played the number one seeds first round. It was Timo de Bakker, the top 15 player in the world. And I can't remember who the other one was, but.
So you guys are obviously unseeded.
Exactly. Yeah. We were unseeded.
Can you maybe just for the listeners, man, walk me through, because I have a pretty good understanding of how you qualify on the pro tour for a major, but how do you qualify for a junior Wimbledon?
Yeah, so back then, I think the ITF rankings are a little bit different now, but back then you had a combined ranking. So there was a singles tournament, a doubles tournament at every single ITF event that we went to, Italy or Belgium or Australia. We were always entering both of them and always playing with each other. The combined ranking is, I think you get like a certain amount of points for how far you get in doubles. And then obviously singles points matter a lot more. Luckily, Nate and I were decent enough at singles to make it a couple rounds in slams and do pretty well at some of these grade A events. But the majority of our combined ranking was me and Nate were doing well in doubles tournaments. It doesn't matter how good your doubles ranking is. The seeding is all based off of a combined ranking that you have at the end of the day. At the time, I think Nate and I were, somewhere around 30 to 40 in the world for that combined ranking, both of us. And when you got guys that are 1 and 5 in the world playing doubles together like they were, those guys are going to obviously be seated higher than we were. So we weren't even seated at that point. But I think they knew at that point that even though, just like in doubles today, there are guys that you do not want to see on a doubles court, but on the singles court, a little bit different, right? Guys like just those doubles specialists that knew what they were doing on a doubles court. Yeah, we ended up playing the number one seeds. They were, combined ranking of 6 in the world, or combined ranking of 6. So I think one of them was number 1 in the world. The other was number 5. Obviously ours is down to 68 or 70 or something. So we're not even close to being seeded. because of that combined ranking, but ended up playing them, winning that in 3 sets, and then ended up going through that tournament. Damn, we're actually playing pretty well. This is going pretty well. We actually split sets and we went to 3 sets every single match until the finals.
Oh my goodness.
And ended up pulling that one out in straight sets. And I'll never forget, actually, I'm pretty scared on championship point. We're on court 1 in front of thousands of people at the most prestigious event in the world. We've got the men's finals coming on right after us. So there's pretty packed. And on top of that, you're just playing in front of history. Those vines that come down from court 1 and the purples and the greens and the people that are all properly dressed, and you can feel that history. I'll never forget Nate serving on championship point, and I'm shaking at this point. Holy crap, we're gonna do this. He's like, all right, man, where do you want me to go? And I was like, dude, you just hit this ball as hard as you can. I do not want to touch it. Just get this away from me. Let's get this done with.
Wow.
Like, all right, don't tackle me. And that's fine. So he hits the serve, and I think it was the fastest serve of the tournament for him. I think he dropped about 142 out wide.
Wow. In the
Luckily,
junior
that
tournament,
ball-
man. Jeez.
So that ball didn't come back. I ended up tackling him anyway. No, honestly, I didn't know what it meant. To win a junior slam is one thing. Obviously, to win a pro slam is better, but
Yeah.
God, the support from back home was incredible. I didn't really understand it until I got back.
What was it like when you got back to U.S. soil, man? Walk me through. You guys win this tournament in England. You come home. What's it like being the country boy again back in Parker, Colorado?
Different, yeah. Honestly, like, I was getting hit up by people that I've never even heard of. There was like a welcome party of like 50 people with signs where I got back to DIA. Honestly, it was just like, it was surreal. And then you see all these paper clippings and everybody's super proud of you and everybody wants to talk to you, and you don't really know what you're doing. You're like, you think it's just another tournament. After a while, you start realizing the importance of it. And hopefully kids could, be able to use that as motivation from Colorado to be able to come out and do something like that. I don't know if, besides Salzy, I can't remember anybody that's gone over there and played Wimbledon to that extent.
Yeah, not a lot. And it makes me think of when I had my podcast with Jeff, we talked a lot about that match that he played against Michael Chang. And he said something very similar to what you just said, is he won that first set and like laid the groundwork for that. Cause I remember him smiling on national TV, and I didn't know who he was smiling to or what it was for, but he was smiling to his family. But he told me at that point, after he won that first set against Chang, who was number 2 in the world, that the match was over. Meaning, because of his limiting beliefs, he was like, I just won a set against the second best guy in the world. I'm good. And lost those next 3 sets. But afterwards, ended up getting hit up by multiple agents trying to say this is the next American tennis player, right? Next best thing. And it's interesting to hear you say you don't quite realize, and it's always funny because I know you're a sports guy too, man, with football and basketball or whatnot. And I always get a kick out of when commentators put a microphone in an athlete's face after they do something great and be like, tell us how you did it. And if that were a moment with you and Nate, it sounds like you'd be like, Nate, you talk, man. I got nothing here. But I just think it's interesting to hear these great moments that you're a human being, man. You're a kid that spent most of his life in Colorado that ended up on the holy grail of tennis on grass, and you're with your best friend just hitting some tennis balls and made a run. How cool is that? As I walk you through it in that context, is it that unbelievable, or was it just you doing life at that point?
I think for me, my type of personality is, listen, I was out there with my best friend having a good time, and luckily we were able to come out with the trophy, but not once was Nate and I like looking at titles or glory or anything like that. I think what was important for us was that we were just going out there trying to kick ass. And that was like,
Yeah.
we wanted to make our statement, knew we were good. We went on to He went on to win the US Open doubles with Jamie Hunt. I went to the French finals after that as well.
And singles semifinalist, and then you did it in doubles with Jonathan.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, I think we were just both living in the moment. We were pretty cocky and confident as well. I think that didn't hurt, but I think most importantly, that was my guy. Nate's always been my best friend. He's always going to be my best friend. And what we were able to do together was just trying to see how far we could take it. And then just like you had mentioned with Salzy, as soon as you realize and you take a step back and you think, I just took a set up for Chang, or, oh, I just won Junior Wimbledon. I've done my part. I feel pretty satisfied with my career at this point. And at that point, it's okay, I don't need to go pro anymore. This isn't necessarily something that I wanted to do. I was able to get my glory, my 15 minutes, and then I can go fulfill another passion of mine, another dream of mine, which was to play at the University of Texas.
Yeah, and that's where we collide in this conversation. Is I mentioned briefly my background, and I'm grateful for your kind words about my tennis game. But to be frank, I started a lot later than you, man. I somehow, some way paid my dues much faster than a lot of kids who are developing paid. I lost a lot of weight after high school, and I was never recruited. I walk on and took scholarships rather than get scholarships. Kellen, I accomplished everything I ever wanted to do as a tennis player. I wanted to play D1. I wanted to represent my homeland, being a Colorado native. And my dad, he played at Colorado State for a year before they told him to run a mile, and then he quit. And then my uncle played at University of Arizona, and both of them played at Wheat Ridge High School. And if you remember a blast from the past, Wheat Ridge was the team that knocked off Cherry Creek that one time in '96 as one of the greatest high school accomplishments ever. So that's a little bit of my background. But nonetheless, what took me out of the game was I hurt my back in my senior year, and I had to play a certain number of matches at that point, I was on scholarship. I was on a half scholarship, but I had to play at least 2 matches in the spring to satisfy the scholarship. So I had played 1, hurt my back, and then I had to get an epidural to finish the second match. And then that's when they found out I had a tumor in my spinal canal, and I was in emergency surgery 3 days later. And essentially it was over for the college career. But nonetheless, I share that to set up some context, because you've been grinding at the game of tennis for a long time, man. And when you shared that Junior Wimbledon moment and said, I got my 15 minutes, I'm good, I'm going to go celebrate and just have some fun at UT. When did you know you were done playing tennis?
I was getting my parents were getting contacted by agents. Nike and Babolat had obviously had conversations with my parents as well. The only conversations that I was really having for myself was with Coach Center and the University of Texas. And I think I really just at that moment wanted to take ownership of my life, try to do something else. Like I said, I felt satisfied with what I had done in junior tennis. I felt like I still had some left in the tank in regards to my tennis career, and I felt like I could accomplish those at the University of Texas. Once I really realized that I either need to take ownership of my life and where I want to go, or these decisions are going to continuously be made for me, then that's when it really became real. We turned down quite a bit to go to college, pissed off a lot of people, Roddick's included. And at that point, you just got to live with the bed you made. Right after juniors, I went to the University of Texas. Nate and I had won Kalamazoo earlier that year, so I was able to bring my coach out, Michael Center, to the US Open when we got that wild card.
Yeah.
Doubles event. That was like my last 2 raw, and I knew it.
06, 07, playing the US Open, the actual US Open.
The actual US Open, yeah. It's a little scary when you draw the number 1 seeds there and you play on Armstrong at night.
Was that with the Max Mirny moment, or?
It was pretty nuts. Those guys are legends. We had just actually come off, quick little story. We had just come off, we practiced with the Bryans quite a bit.
Yeah.
And in practice, we actually did pretty well against them. I wouldn't say we actually ever won a set, but it'd be 7-5, 7-6. We're winning baseline or we're winning doubles games with them in practice. And I'll never forget, Nate and I are the night before the draw comes out, we're like, who do we like not want to see? And both of us were like, honestly, bring on anybody. Mike and Bob, we'll take them on, but just not me or Bjorkman. He's not that. What do you know?
Yeah, man. Of course.
You get the number one team in the world that just beat the Bryans in the French Open final. They won Wimbledon that year as well, I think. Those guys are just, a different level. And I think for the first time that I was playing the U.S. Open, we were a little intimidated.
I was going to ask, was the nerves the same in that match at the U.S. Open as it was when you're playing the finals of Junior Wimbledon?
For me, yeah. I think Nate went out there and just played lights out, and I think he was a little upset with me at that point. Yeah, I don't think that in the Wimbledon final, I think we both just played lights out and we both played great, and it was nerves you could shake off. When you're going up against guys that you have been watching your entire life and grew up trying to emulate, and that kind of takes things to a different level because this is their job now. This isn't kids playing for glory and hoping to make it to what the big leagues one day. These guys are going out there with the intention of burying you. Yes, it was super fun. Obviously, didn't get the result. I think we played pretty well. I think it was like 4-2 or 3-2. It wasn't a complete blowout, but it was definitely a cool experience.
Absolutely. And a lot of things that you said resonated with me just as far as not only your accomplishments, but just more or less you making that decision with UT and making a decision on your own and finding your identity in a sense. Right? At that point, you're still a young man, but you're becoming a man. And I give you a lot of respect to, even though the carrots dangled in front of you, you decided to do what was in your heart and live on your grandpa's legacy and have an experience with a team and teammates that is certainly, as much as you accomplish what you did as a player, those relationships, as we started the conversation, will be with you for the rest of your life. And it's crazy to me because when I think back, and obviously tennis did not end the way that I absolutely wanted it to, but I had no regrets. So I'm going to ask you, man, based off of what you experienced, do you have any regrets in this whole process?
It's always easy to look back and see or think about what could have been. I always knew that this question would be a big one for me forever, probably. When you're put in an opportunity to be able to make a statement in a professional level in a professional sport, usually people take it, not only for the money or the fame or the glory. I didn't want really any of that. I felt like I always could remember or was going to remember that by going to getting the University of Texas, becoming an All-American there, following in my grandfather's footsteps, that was my biggest thing. Could I have done both? Maybe. But by that point, it was just, when you go to college, you're losing 4 years to guys that have been getting ranking ATP points for the last 4 years. There are some guys that can do it. I think Sam Querrey, Steve Johnson, John Isner, those guys did a great job doing it. By that point, it was just a little bit too late for me. But no, I don't necessarily think I regret anything. Obviously, you wish that the road could go on a little bit longer. Would have loved to have seen what I could have done. Not necessarily. I think I could have done okay in singles, but I think I do regret a little bit of not being able to see how far Nate and I could have gotten in doubles. We talk about it quite a bit. I think we could have probably been top 10 if we really went after it. That was a commitment that I don't think either of us were willing to make at the time.
No, I gotcha. And I think what is just the honest to God truth is tennis, it's exhausting, right? I know that we like the individual battle out there, and it's even more of a perk to be out there with a friend battling two other people. But I just remember like it is glorified sword fighting with rackets and a ball. And listen, man, I had to go through a fair share of trauma to callous myself to learn how to compete. Right. And I'm like, man, there's life circumstances that I've been through that make tennis, no matter what foreigner was screaming obscenities at me or any adversity, that I was going to figure out a way to overcome it. And I think that a lot of the things that you did was truly unbelievable. But I got to ask one last question on the playing career. And it might have been an urban legend, but as I mentioned, Coach Gould, I talked to him, and Stanford guy, he had John McEnroe for a year. And he shared this funny story, man, about when John, right before he went to college, he had a crazy run too, where he was building up his world ranking, and he was heavily recruited to Stanford. And Coach Gould thought because of this run, he wasn't going to come to school. So he gets this random phone call, right, from John McEnroe at the airport after he came back from, I think it was winning Wimbledon or something crazy like that. And John called him and he said, "Hey, Coach Gould, like, I'm at the airport, man. Can you give me a ride?" And Coach was like, "Wait, who is this?" He's like, "Oh, it's Mac, man. I'm here." And he's like, "Oh, I gave away your scholarship."
No way.
And then it just got quiet, and Coach Gould was like, no, just kidding, man. I'll be there in 15 minutes. And the story was told from there. But no, I bring up McEnroe because I heard in urban legends that, was there ever a time and a place that you encountered John McEnroe? And I heard that he flew some of the best juniors in the United States to his private home, and I believe it was California or back east, and you basically get to hit with him. And the moment you miss, you are back on that plane going home. Is that a urban legend or is that fact?
That is fact. Yeah. I was certainly one of those kids who was not happy with this. I think I was out there with Tyler Hawkwall, who was another great player at Florida. He played professionally as well, but 16, something like that. Our national coach at the time, Michael Sell, was like, "Hey, we need you to drive out to Laguna. Johnny's requesting two young guys." We start off, it's 2v1. Obviously, Johnny Mac's on his own. Tyler's not doing so hot right in the beginning. He tells Tyler to get off the court, and I'm looking at him like, "Dude, you just left me alone." At first, you're just trying to rally back and forth. Then you start picking it up a little bit. He definitely, I think he must have been 45, 50 at the time. And I'm one of the top juniors in the country at that time as well. And he still had it, man. He was just working me all across the court. We end up playing some games. Tyler's able to jump back in and tap me out, thank God. But if you start missing 2 or 3 in a row, you're going to hear something from him. And if you're missing 4 or 5 in a row, then you're out. It's a pretty intense little workout for a 50-year-old, for sure.
That's awesome. Those types of nuggets, man, as much as you've accomplished what you've accomplished, just those interactions and stories is unreal. And that kind of makes me get to the point with the last couple questions here is, listen, you're 34 years old now. I'm 38, and I know this conversation has been a blast from the past, half of your life ago, but based off of what you know now, man, 34-year-old Kellen Damico, what advice would you give that 16-year-old Kellen Damico that is making some of those tough decisions that you made back then based off of what you know now? What advice would you give yourself?
I think the right answer is just have fun with whatever you're doing. But I think looking back on it, the right answer is, do you want to really think about, do you want to dedicate the next 15 years to only one thing? And are you willing to give everything else up to do that one thing? Or do you want to, move on to that next chapter? I wish that was framed to me in a different way when I was making that decision. Not that the outcome would have been any different. I think really what it takes to be the best. One of the things that really went for me was I didn't want to go be top 100. I didn't want to go be top 50. If I was going to do this, I was going to try to be number one. Granted, there's some really good tennis players like Rafa and Rogers and Joker that probably would have gotten in the way of that regardless. But I think in regards to framing that question a different way, it would have been, hey, are you willing to do this? This is what it's going to take. And honestly, there is no wrong answer. It's going to work out either way. This way, I was able to get a college degree at one of the best universities and follow in my grandfather's footsteps. And for me, that's more than enough.
The fact that you gave yourself advice with an open-ended question, I'm going to I'm going to shoot you straight, man. The Built to Be project is something that I started back to Parker and got out of the college tennis scene and was recovering from my back surgery. And I took this acronym BTB, right? Growing up, people call me Big Teddy Bear, and I hated it. A lot of times it made me pretty self-conscious, and I was just always a bigger guy growing up, as you knew. But I decided to take that narrative and turn it into an open-ended question of what are you built to be? And I asked that question to every kid, every adult, anybody that I've ever been on the tennis courts or in life, just to hear what they have to say and what makes them tick and what their goals and ambitions are. The BTB project does not exist without an influence like you, Kellen. Being a Colorado guy, being a Parker guy, there's not too many of us that have done what we've done as tennis players, but more importantly, the people that you fed into. And I am forever grateful for not only just watching what you did as a player, but more importantly, those times where we got to coach together for a little bit. And even more importantly, being able to help out one of your dear family friends and Claire Cox. And somehow, some way through the pedigree of coach that I've become to watch her win a #2 singles state championship. And I'll be honest with you, man, like as much as I've been given credit for that, I'm doing that with guys like you mentoring, supporting me, and none of this happens without you. I wanted to finish by asking you a very simple question is I know you said that you might have had a little bit of a regret with what you and Nate could have done in doubles and some of the things you could have done as a player, but how do you feel knowing that your playing career and your just really your path that you took as a tennis player has impacted not only people like myself, but a lot of people. And your legacy is unbelievable. What does that legacy mean to you? And what does it mean to know that you've impacted everybody that you have?
So that's what it's all about, man. I really appreciate the kind words and shout out to Claire. She's done pretty much everything on her own too. She had you and she had the supporting cast of her family. And there was obviously times where I'd see Claire off the court and we would hang out just because our parents were friends and we ended up becoming close. I'll take that over top 100 any day. That's honestly what it's all about for me. So I'm a pretty easygoing guy and knowing that my experience had an impact on other people in a positive way is more impactful for me than anything else. I was able to get everything I got out of tennis. So being able to give that back to people that helped me and my friends and community, that means more.
Powerful stuff, Kellen. Cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join me on the BTB project. And that's the mission is these types of conversations, as much as we're blasting the past, it impacts people's lives today in 2023. And to you, your sister, your mom and dad, thank you not only what you've done for my life, but what you've done for Colorado tennis. And we'll continue to pay that forward. Thank you for joining the project. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Coleman, and really appreciate you having me on. Obviously, it's fun to talk about the story. I haven't talked about it in a while, but I hope you keep the mission up, man. This is really cool.
Excellent. And listeners, Kellen's story is one of many. And this is about, as we've mentioned, continue to pay it forward. And I hope that this message resonates with you. Listen, impossible is nothing. If you put your mind to whatever you are looking to accomplish, that not only can that be accomplished, but twofold, that don't ever limit yourself and continue to fight, continue to believe. And I'm proud of each and every one of you. Thanks for joining the episode, and we look forward to the next one.
You're told I'll be your heart temptation.